Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 5 of the Ray Kroc and McDonald Brothers Dictaphone Tapes. I wish there was so much more, but we're leaving it off here at 1959, and in this cassette, we take a look at Ray Kroc as he talks about changes in the contract between Ray and the McDonald brothers, recently opened locations, changing the look of the front waiting rooms, and then a man named Don comes on talking to the McDonald brothers, and he talks about the McDonald brothers' failed Christmas happenings in their San Bernardino location, advertising during the holidays. Ray Kroc then comes back and he talks more about operations and new building designs, the quality of managers at McDonald's locations, and then we tie it all up in a nice little bow as Ray kind of goes on a tangent talking about what it takes to be a McDonald's franchise owner. So with that being said, this is part 5 of 5, the final tape. It's been a wild, fun journey. I hope you guys enjoy this and enjoy this final tape.
Disc Q, January 1959.
I want to apologize for the long delay in getting the contract adjustment back to you, and frankly, I don't have it as yet. Tom Casey and his assistant, Heron, are so doggone busy working on closing leases for new places that I just felt that was more important than anything, to get new places. So I'm going to take it away from them and take it with Frank Bernard, who is a member of the big law firm that is our number one legal outfit, for this with him, and then get it to you. This time I'm going to go all over that there are no complexities. You know, the original contract said that we could not license a corporation. A devil of a lot of them, which in effect is breaking the contract. But the new adjustment to the contract says the same thing as the original one, that again, we cannot license a corporation. Well, of course, you know that today, with the tax situation, that many of our people are advised by their attorneys to incorporate their business. And it would be almost insurmountable for us to say, no, unless you open this as a sole proprietorship, we won't license you. That'd be foolish. So those are the things that have to be changed. And as long as we're going all over the whole thing, why, I'll find all of those things. But it'll be a little while, because Ethel and I are going with another couple down to Jamaica for 2 weeks, and we're leaving on January 30th, so darn well I'll do it before I get back. Actually, in that contract, and I have to laugh about it, because it is comical, and yet from an attorney's viewpoint, because it seems that we have broken about a dozen things in that contract by operating. You know, we tightened up our franchise terrifically since the original franchise agreement, and made it much tougher. But of course, this was was a great benefit to both yourselves and ourselves. And of course, there was the 0.4% on advertising, and there was this corporation deal where we wouldn't license a corporation, and I don't know what. So when I show it to an attorney and tell him about it, he's aghast. But it's all been good and logical, and for our mutual benefit and development. And now that's why I want to go over the thing thoroughly once and for all. Well, so much for that. Now, here's what I want to tell you about. I want to include a piece out of the Chicago Sunday Tribune, which it was in the financial section, and it said that McDonald's showed a 151% increase in the year 1958, and gave the 57 sales figures as 4 million something, and the 58 sales figures is 11 million plus, and I'll include that reprint with this sleeve. Now, we opened Cincinnati and Muskegon, Michigan, and I guess I don't have to tell you about the miserable weather we're having here. Here are the figures for Cincinnati, where, as you know, Frisch has about 27 places in greater Cincinnati. On Tuesday, the 13th, we did 307. That was the opening day. Wednesday, 334. Thursday, 254. Friday, 463. Saturday, 814. Sunday, 743. And Monday, 300. In Muskegon, we opened on Wednesday, the 14th, with a fog, snow, and real cold. We did $223. On Thursday, with a light blizzard, we did $323. On Friday, $653. On Saturday, $1,108. And on Sunday, $650. The temperature ranged from 5 below zero to 40 above. And on Saturday, there was an accumulation of about 6 inches of snow on the ground. To make it even worse, the winter front had been put up, but not a pane of glass in the winter front due to the fact that has been a glass strike in Muskegon, and they wouldn't put the glass in. Well, we finally got the glass put in on Monday of this week. But imagine doing $1,100 on Saturday with no glass in the winter front, 6 inches of snow, and a light blizzard blowing. Our man up there formerly lived in Muskegon and knew all the disc jockeys personally, and they gave him a lot of build-up and free publicity, and that's what did it on Saturday. Nick Karras was there, and Nick was spending all his time running for buns and meat because who the devil would ever think you're going to do that kind of business? But he made it. Now, we will open Decatur, Illinois on Friday of this week, and Peoria Tuesday of next week, and Normal, Illinois, someday next week also. We also expect to open Louisville number 2 someday next week, along with Orlando, Florida, and I think Ocala, Florida. I got another piece of news. We are moving up to the 20th floor in this building. We need more space, and I can't get it on this floor, and I was going to take some on the 6th floor, that is one floor below us, but I didn't want to get us all over the building, so I took a half a floor up on the 20th floor, and that space used to be occupied by the executive offices of Pabst Brewing Company, who moved out of the building to get larger quarters at the Merchandise Mart. We have here at present about 3,400 square feet, and we will now have 6,000 square feet upstairs. The entire 20th floor is air-conditioned. The ceilings were lowered some time back, so our offices will be all air-conditioned, and they all have fluorescent lighting, and all in all, we have beautiful, wonderful facilities. I think you fellows should plan a trip to Chicago during the restaurant show next year when a lot of our boys will be in so that you can see these new facilities, and I think you'll be very proud of them. It'll be real prestige location, and I'm very happy with it. Incidentally, our rent up there will be $2,500 a month. Boy, isn't that something? $30,000 a year rent? Wow. Somebody had told me that 2-3 years ago, I'd have been ready to jump out the window. We're working on, with the hope that we will conclude 200 locations this year. If we miss it, it won't be by far. Harry has been doing a wonderful job of getting mortgage money. The last commitment he got was for $7.5 million. And incidentally, he is flying to Los Angeles next Monday. And if he has time, I'll have him give you a ring but he is going out there to see the G.B. Fuller Company, who are the largest builders in the United States. And they, I understand, are interested in the possibility of building the buildings for us and financing the ground and building. Now, this is just a lot of conversation so far, but it's enough for Harry to go out and talk with them about it. From Los Angeles, he will fly directly to New York with some other financial group on financing and buying and leasing back. So it looks like we are really getting into big business figures. We are still working against a big backlog of operators who are registered, and I think we are now making much more progress. If we can whip this ground and building situation, there will be no limit to our progress. If we go after them, I think we can get at least 250 operators a year. Our backlog must be at least 75 people, and it looks as though we are always going to be able to work against the backlog, which is a very happy situation. But it is rough when you have to tell people it'll be 1 year from the time they sign up until they get open. And that, of course, discourages a lot of people. Bob Levitt from our office has been in Portland and Seattle and telephoned that it looks like we're set in both Portland and Bellevue, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. I'll be happy if we are, because I think we can develop some growth in Oregon and in Washington, and then into Utah and that area. Incidentally, we had 7 inches of snow last night, and now it has started to snow again this morning. Well, I think this brings you pretty much up to date, and I'll say so long for now and be talking to you again soon. So long.
Disc R, September, October, 1959.
Hello, Mac and Dick. One thing I forgot to answer in your sleeve was regarding the waiting room out in front. I believe I mentioned to you that I had plans for making that room much more attractive. I want to cover those marble walls with wood paneling and improve the lighting in there with lamps and so forth, and change the carpeting on the floor. And it looks as though the most practical thing to do with the rug on the floor will be to put in a very attractive, probably red and white, or some type of rubber or tile-type floor. The people coming in with grease and mud on their shoes just leave carpeting in bad shape. There are times now that we have 12, 14 people out there, and we have to bring in extra chairs and things of that kind. And the result is that we don't have the facilities out there for a table and things of that kind. What I want to do is to have, after we get the wood paneling walls, to get some real good-looking photographs of the McDonald units around the walls. As far as the brochures are concerned, I felt that it's better not to pile them up out there because, first of all, we want to take a look at the people who want brochures so that we can be more discriminating. And secondly, most of the people waiting out there have already received brochures through the mail or in person. A miniature McDonald building would be wonderful if we could get a real work of art those things will all come with time, but there are so many things to do that there just aren't enough hours in the day to get them done, and the most important things have to come first. I don't know just when we'll get that front room taken care of, because we just have gone through the wall now for that additional 30 by 30 space. They moved desks in there 2 or 3 days ago, and they've got to build a private office and do considerable work in there before we are completely settled. You know, I've been thinking overnight since I wrote you yesterday. With all of this intense competition, and it's going to be organized, all directed toward 15-cent hamburgers. It's more important than ever that we have a closer, better association with our operators, and that we do things to have better control. I think when we get these controlled units of ours in Columbus, Ohio, and embellish the grounds and reach a point of perfection in the operation, that we will have very much of what you have there in San Bernardino, as far as we are concerned. For instance, when we know anybody's going to the West Coast, we tell them, look, don't be bothered with any place else other than San Bernardino. And the reason we tell them that is because we're sure of what they're going to see. And every operator that has seen San Bernardino says, boy, I'd like nothing better than to have my unit look like their unit. Now, all of these hot shots getting into this business and worrying about the fast buck are not going to have these examples to show to their operators or to be imitated. Therefore, I feel that we can have outstanding models of progressiveness and refinements in the operation only in such places where we do the planning and we have the control. We're going to have a lot of operators say, well, I can get in this other system cheaper than I can yours, and I can get into it faster, and they let me do this, and they let me do that, which you don't, and so I'm going to go into that system. And then he'll end up by saying, what's the difference? They sell 15-cent hamburgers the same as you, so what's the difference? I think the only way that we can prove and reprove constantly the big difference is to show this big difference in places that we are confident of, and those places can only be our own controlled places. If I felt that we could finance the things and grow rapidly enough, I would darn near be in favor of never selling another franchise. But, of course, that is impossible, at least at this moment. But if we were in a position to put in 100 units a year, and we could control them and have them operate like Woolworth Company and Sears Roebuck and those people, boy, oh boy, we would then be able to say exactly what is going on in every McDonald unit in the country. And as long as they're licensed, we can never say that. And no matter how many supervisors we have, we can never say it. We have talked here of being fussier and more discriminating about the people that go into it, but you can't be a psychologist, and you can't anticipate how these people change after they get into business. There's one thing that I have found out for certain. That is that the more successful the Jewish people are, the more attention they pay to their business. And the more successful the average Gentile is, the less attention he pays to his business. And 8 out of the top 10 for the month of July prove that. even a good licensee will never be as good as a company-controlled unit, because as soon as a guy has some of his money in the place, he wants to have something to say about that place. In fact, he wants a hell of a lot to say about it. I'm sure that if Safeway stores and Food Fair and Jewel Tea and you name the biggest supermarket people in the country, if they were franchised, I think they'd have nothing but headaches constantly as far as advertising to the public exactly what they could expect when they go into their places. We've got a devil of a lot of real fine operators, and their places show it, and their volume shows it, and their profit shows it. But unfortunately, they are not all that way. I expect that most of these other systems are going to follow the Golden Point and Henry's and Burger Chefs and so forth idea of selling area franchises and let those people sub-franchise. If that is the case, then of course these sub-franchisers will let anybody who has enough money get into it and operate just about as they please. At least they'll have very wide tolerances as long as they are getting a buck out of it. Another thing about controlled operations is that you can set up a budget of advertising and keep that thing continuous and progressive. Until the present time, we have had no demand on the operator for any amount of advertising, and this has been left strictly to his decision, and the result is that the majority of them feel that advertising is an expense and not an investment. Now we are putting in 2.5% of gross as being necessary for advertising as a part of the franchise. Jim Zion says that the quality of the food is the most important thing in a McDonald's, and the second thing is the quality of the personnel and cleanliness of the place, and the third thing is advertising and public relations. And he says the first two things should be taken for granted by any good operator, and therefore the only thing left of importance is advertising and public relations. And if he doesn't do considerable and continuous and steady advertising and public relations, he cannot expect his business to grow. Jim has proven this at his Criterion restaurant, where he has fine food and fine service in fine surroundings. But if he doesn't tell the people about it, then new people looking for an outstanding place to eat would never know about his place. And of course, it's an old adage that any business must continue to have a constant flow of new business to make up for the older customers who may move away, pass away, or become ill or something else. Every business loses old customers. So they must continually have new customers, new people that had never been there before, coming in to supplant those people and augment the total number of customers. While I may talk disparagingly about some of our licensees, I don't think that there is a single one that doesn't have the greatest respect for the McDonald name and the McDonald system and way of doing business and our code of ethics. And that is the reason that we have such a long list of people on the waiting list, because the people in our business are recommending to their friends and relatives that they go into this business. This, of course, is the greatest goal of accomplishment to have these people recommending us in this fashion. And for them to tell their friends and relatives why they should not go into one of these other systems. The greatest thing I can think of would be that company-controlled units as a chain would have such respect by our operators that they would want their managers, and they themselves, in many cases, would be very anxious to take a refresher course by the operating executives of such a chain operation, where they demonstrate, not with theory and words, but in practice, the real important things. For instance, Dusenberry and Coy, who are opening in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Charlotte, gave me a great compliment about Nick Karras. They said of all their years in the Navy, with people who are supposed to know foods and all that sort of thing, they have never found anyone as well-versed as Nick Karras. Nick went into the bakery down there and talked with the bun people about the buns and their formula and their proofing and the sugar content and the type of pans and every phase of the bun. And they told me that they were convinced in their mind that Nick Karras knew more than the baking company people did about what they were baking. They said the same thing was true about meat. All the various types of meat and the way it was trimmed and cut and the suet content and all this and that. So the greater our knowledge and the greater our enthusiasm and desire toward perfection, the greater the respect we're going to get from these people and the closer knit organization we're going to have, and the better equipped we are to beat hell out of anybody. Well, that's enough blasting for now, and I'm right at the end of the cylinder, so long. By the way, here's one of my new business cards.
Disc S, December 1959.
Dick, this is Don Wallet, maybe a little bit. I'm sure he up to 100%. Everyone in San Bernardino had a very Merry Christmas. Right now, Verdale Farm in Fort Lauderdale, my wife and the children. So far, we've been enjoying a very nice vacation. We left Chicago December the 22nd by way of Louisville, no operator on Louis for 2. So Christmas, he and his wife with and from the children. After Christmas, and we left Louisville and went from Louisville to Tarpon Springs, Florida, where we stayed with Boris's mother and father. So we had a couple of nice days with them. We came down here and we were staying at the Pier 66 boats. It's probably one of the nicest parts of Fort Lauderdale. We came here quite by accident, and we've been very pleased. And the price is right, too. Actually, I'd either get a disc or potato leather off to you before I left Chicago, and there just seemed to be so damn many things that were coming up. Boy, that office is a madhouse, as you fellas could see when you're there. There's just not enough hours in the day to try and accomplish everything. And one of the things that I had wanted to comment about the Christmas deal that you fellas had planned for San Bernardino, and was very sorry to learn that you were not able to go through with it. This is a real spectacular when you do something like that. Big problem is always a fiasco that might develop. And frankly, I can see the part of your attorneys very well. All you'd have to do is have a few people get some of the so-called snow in their eyes, and then you'd really be in trouble. There might have been some modifications to it that you could have used, but these things usually take a lot of planning. I mean, you have to start and work on this maybe 2 or 3 months in advance, and then try and work every angle of it to see where your shortcomings and mistakes are. And I guess it's just like building a McDonald unit. You've got to think of about everything that could conceivably happen, and then investigate every point and see that it's right for you. Offhand, I liked the idea real well. I thought it would have really created quite a stir. And I imagine you fellas did too, because you were certainly going at it in the right way. I was quite glad to see the number of operators that used the season's greetings billboards, and we've received a lot of favorable comments from them. I know I was down in Washington seeing Oscar Goldstein and John Gibson. They had a get-together with the operators from the eastern area. I think there were about 10 or 12 of them at a meeting there in Washington. And the reason they got together were to discuss ways they could help each other through their advertising and general public relations, because they found that while most of their operations are going along pretty good, that when they do advertise, and if they handle it correctly and do it on a high plane, that they notice that they get a build-up in sales, and they also get comments from the local city fathers and the Chamber of Commerce and the organizations that they like to be associated with. And it was a very good meeting, and I think just about everybody got a lot out of it. And Oscar Goldstein had billboards up that had season's greetings on them, and they'd only been up a few days, and many people stopped in to tell them that they had seen the attractive billboards. They liked the message, and they thought it was in very good taste. Two of the billboards were on US 1 leading from Washington, D.C. to Alexandria, Virginia. Both were lighted billboards, and you just couldn't help but run smack into them if you were driving in either direction on US 1, either going into Washington or going out of Washington. In Chicago, and I know the office sent the photographs on. I was talking to them on the telephone, make sure that they got them off to you so you get a little idea of what we did in Chicago. We used the Dictaphone Company's window on Michigan Boulevard. Actually, they came to us and asked us if we'd be interested in using their window during the holiday season. We use quite a bit of their equipment. Practically all of our fellows carry dictaphones. And we took the billboard. Actually, this was the what they call a 6-sheet billboard, not the 24-sheet. And we gave it to a local window director, what would you call it, a decoration company. And we had them put McDonald's in lights. And actually, if you drove down Michigan Boulevard, past the Dictaphone Company's office, it hit you right between the eyes. And of course, we had another big 24-sheet lighted board downtown. It was at Lake Street and LaSalle Street, practically across from the office. And it was lighted with season's greetings. Then, of course, the Santa wagon going around downtown Chicago. And up until the time I left, we had people that would give us a buzz on the telephone, tell us they had seen it and wanted to thank us for it. Sometimes these are the comments that mean more than about anything else you can think of. That people actually take the time to people tell you what they think of something like that. The Santa wagon idea seems to be a good public relations item as well as doing an actual community service. We let the operators know last year what was involved in handling something like this. And this year, a number of the fellas took on a similar program. And in Rockford, it was used, and was used in Kankakee, and many other areas around the country. And again, this gets back to being the civic thing that you kind of like to be associated with, and I think it means a lot for the McDonald name. And of course, in my end of this business, and I try to do everything that we possibly can to keep elevating the McDonald name so that it becomes a byword of the people. I don't know if my kids are any example of it, but I kind of think they are. Even down here in Florida, they'd rather go to McDonald's and have hamburgers than they would go to the finest restaurant here. And I've tried to think, well, geez, maybe the kids, just because the old man is with the organization, that maybe that's one of the reasons. But I don't think it is, because they're pretty willing to give you their opinion of something. And if they didn't like it, they'd tell you about it right away. Since I've been down here, I've had a chance to clear the cobwebs out of my head a little bit. I've been doing some thinking about the McDonald's units that are in Southern California. And I know that some of them have gotten off the track, and that Ray has expressed to me several times that he didn't see much hope for them. I'm just wondering, maybe you fellows can straighten me out. I think there ought to be some good possibilities of pulling these fellows back in to doing things the McDonald way, the way you fellows originally had wanted it set up. And I've got a big urge to go out there and just sit down and talk to them. I don't see anything that we gain from it other than getting them to be good McDonald operators. And if they're good McDonald operators, they'll reflect on the overall organization across the country. And certainly they ought to be able to see what the operators are doing that do things the way we think they should be carried out. And I just feel that if a little selling job could be done on them, that we could get them back into the fold and get them performing like other McDonald's around the country. I'd appreciate your comments on that point. I'd sure like to see it revived. I can't see in my own mind why the state of California can't be every bit as good as any place else in the country. Geez, you fellas certainly have proved what can be done in the town, and it's just a matter of straightening the situation out and getting the ball rolling in the right direction. And if you think there's some possibilities along that line, I know Fred has been out there, and I know Ray has been out there also. But I just got enough, I guess, of this Irish blood in me to feel that if you sit down and talk to these fellas, and they certainly must be reasonable people, that we could be able to show them how successful the program has been and try to get them back into the fold. There's a lot of strength in the organization, and these fellows could profit by everything that we've been doing, particularly if they operate in the same manner. I hope to be able to be out in the Denver. I'm going to Denver and then on to Albuquerque to see the fellas, the second unit open in Albuquerque, and we've got, I don't know how many open now in Denver, but it must be 3 or 4. If they're not open, they're about to open. I think some of them are opening while I'm away. And I want to get together with these fellas and try to show them that how they can work together cooperatively from an advertising and public relations standpoint. Gee, there's just so much they can do. And we put a lot of effort into the building and into our product. And if they will just use a little bit of common sense in this advertising and public relations and work together, they could do a real fine job. So I want to get together with the fellas in Denver, and actually it'll take in the Colorado area. I know that Dick Faulkner in Colorado Springs likes the idea of doing work together, and I know the fellas in Cheyenne, Wyoming would be willing to come down and see what they could do collectively and in the same direction to help one another. From Denver, I'll go on to Albuquerque and spend a few days with the fellows there. We got a couple of good operators in Albuquerque, and just want to make sure that they get off to the right start and don't get any bad ideas. If they can just get off to on the right foot, they can develop a real good pattern all the way through. So it'd be an easy jump to go from Albuquerque then into Los Angeles. I don't know whether I'd be driving our airplane or whether I'd be going commercially with a hop, skip, and jumping idea. I think probably I'd take our airplane. I'd like to stop. I could leave in Chicago. I could go to Chicago, Des Moines, Iowa, and we've got 2 now in Des Moines. They go from Des Moines to Omaha to Lincoln, Nebraska, Lincoln to Denver, Denver, Albuquerque, then Albuquerque either to Phoenix, and then into Los Angeles or San Bernardino. I'd like to see your operation. I've heard a lot about it. I've got this stuff up to my ears, and the more I can see, the more I appreciate, and I think the better man I'll be for the organization. Gee, I've been going on babbling here, and I didn't mean to do that, and I've been kind of running all over the place. But if you fellas think that there's some possibilities of working with the operators in Southern California, I'd like to hear from you. you got any other suggestions you think might be good for the gang, I'm all ears. I hope to be down here another week or so. And then we'll get back into Chicago. Start to get back into the groove. Whoops, forgot one thing to tell you about. The Coca-Cola people in Chicago had some kind of a program going on with local civic groups whereby they were going to visit various teens. They also volunteered to give these to free hamburgers. They in turn came to us and asked us if we would be able to supply the Coca-Cola company with the hamburgers. They paid for every one of them. It was very successful. There's a lot of comments were given regarding hamburgers. Meg and Dick, I'm running out of space here. So the best regards for the new year, and look forward to hearing from you.
Disc T, 1959.
It's going to become generally known, and the customers refer to it as give me the large fries, folks. Or the 15-cent fries. People will back up and hear it. And so these operators, you know how their thinking is. They think that if we don't let them have a sign up saying 15-cent drinks, that we're penalizing them. And they make a real big issue of it. And it's just not worth fighting about. You know, you can fight about certain things. Like, I'll fight like hell about a machine or a jukebox. In fact, I would default any franchise that had anything like that, or hired girls, or anything of that kind. But there are limits. When it comes to something like this, you just can't fight about everything. But I'll assure you this, in Macopco, there won't be any reference to any 15-cent drinks. You're right about when you say if you're going to have different price drinks, why not have different price hamburgers? There's no question about it. But, again, being realistic, you know, we have short beers and regular beers. We have a small glass of beer and a stein of beer. We have a single martini and a double martini. You know, the A&W have always had a nickel stein of root beer and then the regular stein for a dime. So these are practices that have been going on for years by the bottled beverage people and other type beverages in draft. So the people have a certain expectancy on that, but they don't expect that same type of thing in French fried potatoes or in a sandwich. So it seems to fall in a different category. As I told you about the interior lighting, somewhere or other in these architects' drawings and contractors' drawings, the lighting got fouled up some way, and either they got the building dimensions cockeyed so that they couldn't get the right number of tubes of a certain length in there, or something else went haywire. But this has been remedied, and here again you would see in the newest buildings a considerable change. There's no question on the tile jobs that we have had some miserable workmen. But here again, I'd be darned if I know how you overcome that sort of thing. The real way to put tile on, to have it frost-proof, is by excellent workmanship and have that thing set in cement with the proper kind of mortar and caulking job. This, like the green cement around the exterior of the place, will always be a problem because the artistry is in the workmanship, and there aren't too many artists left in those trades. I have already discussed with Fred and Don Conley your thinking about having all the contact between our field men and the managers. Everyone is in agreement that this is a very smart approach to the problem. However, it is not quite as simple as it may sound. real good managers don't stay at one of our places too long. They are at a premium and are being sought after by operators who will pay them from $12,000 to $15,000 a year. And when they get that kind of money, it isn't long before they are working on owning their own McDonald's in some kind of a partnership arrangement. Other managers are either fired because they're not adequate, or they're dishonest, or they've got bad habits, or are not dependable, or not clean, and therefore it is difficult to get a long developing friendship and contact with the manager at a place where there is mutual respect. The only one fella who is permanent is the owner. Now, we're going to try to do this to the best of our ability and stick with it. But like anything else, there's no use of looking for miracles. If we have an owner of a place who doesn't spend much time with it and is not particularly interested in the food business, we've basically got a bad operation, whether he's got a good manager or a bad manager, because that manager isn't going to stay with that kind of an owner very long under normal circumstances, because he doesn't have very much respect for him. You see, in this area and in the East, competition is making business seek better employees, and they are outbidding each other for quality employees. They don't stay with anybody like your boys stayed with you in San Bernardino. That's an unheard of thing around here. And naturally, labor goes where it can get the most money. Unless the fella makes up his mind that he won't live any place but Florida, and if he does, why, he knows it's going to be pretty darn hard to get more than $1 an hour down in that country. That place is not for the working man. That's for the guy that has made it and wants to enjoy it. What I really think will happen with some of these remote owners, and I hope to hell it happens, is that the volume of business will go down. In other words, diminishing returns will set in, and they will eventually get discouraged and disgusted and sell the unit. With the background and experience we've had with this, we can now afford to be choosy. In fact, we are being much more so than ever before. When people come in now, we try to psychoanalyze them to find out whether they like this business. If they don't like it, we don't care how much money they got, because they don't fit in this business. And with all of these competitive 15-cent burger chains, if we're going to have a better class of licensees, we're going to have to start it right now, yesterday and the day before, and bring up the quality of our operators. This is certainly a most intangible thing and a hard thing to define, but at least we can try to do a better job of it than we did heretofore, because heretofore, if the man had the money and was of good character, he was in. But now that isn't enough. He's got to like this business. He's got to have a desire to want to grow and increase his volume, and understand that he is expected to spend 2.5% of his gross sales in advertising, and more if he wants to be a real outstanding operator. That he's got to be a mother hen and look after it day and night, and that he has to develop an organization and delegate authority, and he's going to have to pay for that if he wants a happy group of workers who show the customers that they're not bored sick with their job. Now, of course, it's a matter of judgment with this fella. Nobody expects him to work 7 days and 7 nights a week. He's got to have his vacations, his respites. He's entitled to go fishing for a few days or hunting for a few days and enjoy some of the fruits of his labor. But he cannot just take an attitude that he can't be bothered, because people who don't like children shouldn't have children. And people who don't like the food business shouldn't have a McDonald's. I'm in closing with this, a couple of printed pieces. One is a publicity piece that goes out to these towns where we plan to get sites. And I thought you'd be interested in seeing an example of some of the articles that are put out and the replies we get from real estate people in the area. The one from Wheeling, West Virginia is the one that just happened to come in here today. Now, in summarizing some of these things, if I can, and I'm thinking of so many things that I'll probably leave half up out. But there is one thing for sure. Licensing under a franchise will always have its problems because of absolute lack of control over every phase of the business. Any strong operating chain can beat the hell out of a licensee of a franchise under normal circumstances because the executive group makes the decisions in the chains and it is followed through to the letter. This will never be true with licensees of franchises. You can go to every city, you can hold meetings, you can just keep doing this 52 weeks of the year, and the day after you hold the meeting, you should hold another one because they've already forgotten it. Or they figure it's for your good, not theirs, and they develop some kind of a selfish idea about it. And then, of course, the man who has his money invested in that business just has to make certain decisions himself to take care of his own pride and to satisfy his ego that he owns that business and he is running it. As bad as many things are, I think we have come a long way from some of the early birds in this business and from what I've seen of Golden Point and Henry's and Burger Chef and those people. And while we have a lot of room for improvement, I think that generally speaking we are far ahead of them, and we intend to stay that way. Do you know that without air conditioning, and I don't know whether you've heard that in the Middle West here we've had temperatures as high as 100 consistently with tremendous humidity for about the last 2 weeks. Do you know that we have places that it's 100 degrees inside of that place? Can you imagine working the griddle and the French fries under those conditions? It's really been rough. Well, I feel like I have been talking in a marathon or for a long-distance record or something. So I hope your ears don't get weary from all of this noise and that you'll let me hear from you real soon. Let's keep clashing ideas and plans and dreaming and projecting because that is the greatest insurance for the future. They all thought you were crazy when you started this tremendous development of self-service, popular-priced, specialized menus, and it was radical. But you knew what you were doing, and any ideas that are developed mutually here are not going to be half-cocked. They're going to be kicked around between us, but it'd be a hell of a lot better than not being bothered with any ideas at all. Agree? Okay, fine. Nice to talk to you. So long for now.